Hello, and welcome to Orange Wave, the series where we discuss all things relating to the NDP. I'm your host, Will Adams. As we kick off Pride season, I want to take a moment to wish all of our listeners in the LGBTQ+ community a happy and empowering season ahead. Whether you identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, asexual, or any other identity under the rainbow, I see you, I celebrate you, and I stand with you. Pride season is about honoring the history and ongoing struggles of the LGBTQ+ community, as well as celebrating the diversity, resilience, and contributions of its members. So I've decided to kick off Pride season with an episode which focuses on Josh Alexander and why he is a very problematic figure for the LGBTQ+ community. That might sound a bit harsh, but this individual has made himself out to be the victim after pushing transphobic rhetoric in class when the school told him that what he was doing was bullying. Josh Alexander stood up in class one day and decided to whine about trans students at his school being allowed to have basic dignity and be treated with respect. And he also said that trans people shouldn't be allowed to use the washroom that correlates to their gender identity. He ended up being arrested after a suspension for trespassing, after he refused a number of reasonable conditions to return to class, such as not vilifying trans classmates for using the washroom. You don't need me to tell you this, though. He can tell you himself. This clip comes from the Toronto Sun.
But there is a way for Josh Alexander to get back in the class, but it's something he's not prepared to do.
I would have to basically agree to a multitude of conditions that are contrary to my religious beliefs. I would basically have to recognize that anybody can identify as they wish, and that anybody else must identify them or address them in that manner. And I'm also not, I wouldn't be allowed to mirror any trans students. I wouldn't be allowed to speak to them. I wouldn't be allowed to be in my classes. Yeah, there's not really a way for me to go back.
In the classroom, Josh Alexander feels that he's talking about the overall issue and not the individuals. As a born-again Christian and as somebody with freedoms in a country that has freedoms, Josh Alexander has some very strong views on this subject, but they're views that many people don't want to hear.
Everything first erupted in a class debate, and that you basically have it. That's what I said. And then it went beyond that over time, where it got to teachers like encouraging and defending male breastfeeding and stuff, and I openly called that pedophilia. And that was another allegation against me, but the main one is that I said there's two genders and there's trans students in the class that considered that bullying.
In simpler terms, what we have is a case where the class Trumpster decided to run his mouth in class in such a way that made other students feel unsafe, which is not allowed in a school setting. That is considered bullying and harassment, which the Charter rights to freedom of expression in fact do not protect. The school told him that if he returned, that they wanted him to stay away from trans students and be respectful after what he had been saying, which are all totally reasonable conditions, but conservatives can't handle being held accountable for what they say because they still can't get it around their head, the idea that freedom of speech does not mean freedom from the consequences of speech. People like him don't understand that when you speak, you're subject to the consequences that follow. But of course, Josh Alexander could not just accept the fact that bullying trans students isn't allowed at a school setting, and he decided to throw an international temper tantrum and vent to former Fox News anchor Tucker Carlson.
You were arrested because you showed up on campus at a Catholic school for saying that men and women are different. Have we overstated that?
No, that's exactly what happened. There was a lot of steps that it took to get to that point, but female students complained to me, and they said they were concerned because males were using their washrooms. This turned into a debate at the school, and I stated my opinion on it, and I used scripture to back that up, and they removed me from the building for the remainder of the year, and when I attempted to attend class, I was arrested and charged.
Did you point out that this is a Christian school? and that this is like a core Christian idea because it's like in the Christian book, which some call the Bible?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually tried to have that discussion with my administrators, but they refused to do so.
Mr. Kitchen, my apologies, by the way, on what's happened to your, I think, great country. What's your recourse legally in Canada?
Well, it's limited, of course, because our Constitution is much weaker, and because there seems to be culturally and legally much less respect for individual rights and freedoms, and much more interest in, government having the kind of power to do what it wants. But there is recourse to the Ontario Human Rights Commission in this case. We think there's been religious discrimination on the basis of Josh's Christian religious beliefs, so we're going to file a complaint to the Ontario Human Rights Commission. And there is recourse through the board itself as far as appealing these disciplinary decisions, and we hope to explore that as well.
I gotta make the case here that the Canadian government needs to ban Fox News from our cable networks. They have repeatedly violated the Canada Code of Ethics for Broadcasters. They continue to do so, and they should be reprimanded accordingly. That being said, it's clear that those betting that the headline saying a student was arrested for saying there's only two genders was out of context. They were right, because that just isn't what actually ended up happening. This is almost exactly like that time that the right-wing establishment media claimed that a school had litter boxes in classrooms for people who identified as cats, which isn't even a real thing that happens. Of course, unsurprisingly, it turned out the entire thing was a hoax, and the real reason was a lot sadder. The real reason this class had litter boxes in it was in case a shooting happened and a student needed to use the washroom. But, why report the facts of a situation when you could use it to push the anti-trans agenda? Conservative media platforms have to compensate for their party's shitty economic plans somehow, I guess. Getting back on track here, bullying destroys mental health and well-being and has the potential to kill people. Trans minors in particular deal with bullying to a significantly higher degree than cisgender ones, and this kind of shit is the reason why. I don't think it needs to be said that it is beyond shameful that the media is enabling someone to bully others and is pushing the narrative that bullying is a constitutionally protected right if you're either a conservative or a Christian. This isn't just a simple debate either. This situation will have consequences that are already affecting a portion of Canada's next generation of voters, who only vote in little more than 2 years now. The next election is in 2025. We should be teaching people to be compassionate of others and to be open-minded. This is the exact opposite of that. We are becoming increasingly more divided than ever because of the conservative rhetoric and conspiracies coming from in the Conservative Party and the right-wing establishment media that pushes fear and creates anxiety. Josh Alexander embodies this demographic: selfish, afraid, and angry. The vile behavior he exhibits is the exact opposite of what Canadians should be encouraging. Bottom line, your religious freedoms end where the rights of others begin. And your religion, furthermore, doesn't give you the right to bully or demean another person. Thank you for listening to this episode of Orange Wave. I am your host, Will Adams. I hope you have an amazing day, and remember, Jagmeet Singh loves you.